When Jack Ma addressed the audience at the Bund Summit, he spoke at a critical moment for finance. He was on the verge of launching Ant Group's record-breaking $35 billion IPO, which would have solidified his status as China's wealthiest individual. However, events unfolded differently, signaling a shift in China's perception of its most prominent billionaire. Let's explore how China lost patience with its loudest billionaire. One of the founders of Alibaba, a major Chinese corporation, Ma was the speaker at an event named the Bund Summit. He claimed that he thought it was necessary to discuss finance now, even though he was not quite sure about it.
高兴有这么个机会和大家一起学习、交流和探讨。
While he was giving the speech, he pointed to the outdated governmental rules that he believed would not let fresh ideas in.
非专业人士又来到了上海的外太金融论坛，希望有一些观点供大家思考。其实今天要不要来讲，坦白来说，我很纠结。但是我想我们这一批人，或者我们这一代人
Ma is the one who is famous for speaking his mind in a straightforward way, but after the speech, the government started to monitor the company. Such as that, they also ended a major public sale of one of Alibaba's parts, which is called Ant. These measures led to the decline of Alibaba's value by $140 billion, which equals 17% of its total value. In the meantime, Ma has not been involved in any public events. The government says he should have returned to China. It's the government's warning that they are not happy with leaders like him who have power. They believe that those leaders would cause a lot of trouble to China's politics and money that President Xi Jinping thinks a lot about. They were previously celebrated as symbols of economic growth and the country's technological advancement, but the companies they led are now under the microscope. The most prominent among them is Ma Huateng, the chairman of Tencent Holdings Limited, who is commonly known as Pony. While the number of users and the area of daily life in China that these platforms influence is increasing, their influence is being called into question. Rana Mitter, a Chinese politics expert at Oxford University, argues that the Communist Party aims to maintain its supremacy over figures like Ma, but at the same time publicize China as a place of business that is favored. Ma had always managed to strike the right balance between her two lives for over 20 years, but these recent events had been set in motion. The story began with the suspension of the world's largest IPO, which had an enormous impact on the world's financial markets. Next, the Antitrust Authority issued draft rules designed to address monopolistic practices, which may be viewed as a signal to Ma and other entrepreneurs to be more careful. Moreover, the regulations were not only applicable to small businesses but also to large companies like Ant Group through imposing stricter rules for those operating in finance, online lending, and insurance. The more the pressure increased, the more the Chinese leaders emphasized the need for a more powerful antitrust policy and to control the growth of fast capital, which meant more strict oversight of private companies. Ma's business has now reached its rock bottom. His executive team is having frequent meetings with regulators, and the authorities are considering taking steps like restructuring or imposing new limitations to reduce the risk from Ant Group to the economy. In a first public address after the IPO suspension, Ant's chairman, Eric Jing, admitted his regrets. On December the 15th, he stated that the company was giving attention to critics and doing a deep self-evaluation. Ant responded by not commenting further, and the banking regulator didn't respond to the request for comment. While Alibaba's executives are fighting against the new antitrust laws that aim to limit the aggressive competition in online shopping, as well, the firm is suffering from the aftermath of the Ant scandals since it heavily depends on Ant's payment platform for most of its online payments. And Ant's lending services are the main force of consumption on Alibaba's platforms. Ma's coming down is a result of a long process. He was a school teacher in his early years, and later he established a few of Asia's biggest digital companies, which symbolized the generation of China's self-made entrepreneurs. They were able to satisfy the wishes of both the Beijing government and the foreign investors and created highly profitable private businesses. According to Eric Schaefer, the CEO of Patriarch Organization, Ma may have been under the impression that he had more power than he actually did against President Xi Jinping's authority. Although he claims to be a revolutionary fighting against the system, Ma's Alibaba was known as an online platform that surpassed eBay and became the largest company in China. However, it is his second creation, Ant Group, that has caused the problem. Ant's Alipay service, a product that was created during a period when private finance was risky in China, changed the way payments were made online. Though Alipay faced difficulties at the beginning, it became successful, and this led to the conventional banks being shaken to their core, but eventually they had to change. Then Ma began his efforts to break the control of the state-owned banking system. Ant's invention of Weibo, which only required 1 yuan, 15 cents, as a minimum deposit and had easy withdrawal, was an attempt to disrupt the traditional banking system. In 2013, Weibo was one of Ma's ideas of the future of the financial system, which was more transparent and challenged the traditional banking system. In addition, Ma proclaimed to his team, "I'll be the one to go to jail if someone has to." The risk paid off. In just a year, Weibo's assets reached 100 billion yuan, or 15.3 billion, enticing 30 million users. Jack Ma, who publicly defied the banking industry's restrictive practices limiting consumer choice, was caught unawares by the influence of the state-owned enterprises in China. Their lobbying was a successful one, and the regulations were put into place to limit Ant's activities. Governor Zhao Zhaochuan of the People's Bank of China pointed out in 2016 that Ant's financial activities were not treated like traditional banks. This spelled out the need for fair competition. In the wake of a new CEO, Ant shifted its strategy from being a regulator-hating fintech to working with the regulators and helping banks connect with its massive user base. Alibaba made headlines with its 2014 IPO in New York, which was the world's largest at the time. Despite this success, Jack Ma advised caution in dealing with authorities, suggesting engagement with the government without relying too much on it. By January of 2015, Jack Ma's relationship with Chinese authorities worsened. The State Administration for Industry and Commerce accused Alibaba of hosting questionable merchants, selling fake goods, and involvement in bribery and false advertising, damaging the company's reputation. This came after Ma promised at the World Economic Forum not to share user data with Beijing unless it involved serious crimes like terrorism. Alibaba had also criticized government inspectors on Weibo for their inconsistent standards just a day earlier. These events worried investors, causing Alibaba's stock price to drop. To address the crisis, Ma met with regulators several times, even speaking at an internal meeting of the China Securities Regulatory Commission. He agreed to more oversight and stressed that Alibaba wasn't too big to be held accountable.